Representation. Well, I guess a starting point would be to break that word down and to say that what the media do is represent reality. They don't just present reality or show us what goes on in the world. They're not just a window on the world. They are representing reality. So there are all sorts of mediation that go on. So things are edited together, choices are made about showing things in particular kinds of ways. So in a way you could say what the media are doing is portraying reality in a particular kind of way. When we think about representation, very often people start to think about how particular social groups are represented in the media. So how are men and women presented? How are different ethnic groups represented? How is the family represented? And so on. And there are many ideas there that are quite complicated and quite difficult, and we need to be careful about them. One is the idea of stereotypes, the idea that what we see in the media is a collection of stereotypes, a collection of simplified representations that just fix on particular features of a certain social group, and somehow those stand for the social group as a whole. And the idea often is that we can replace stereotypes with an accurate representation of how the world really is. And the problem is that that is often much more difficult than one might think. And in a way you could say that one reason why stereotypes can be powerful, why stereotypes can influence people's attitudes, why if we see a stereotype of a particular ethnic group that sees them in a particular way, why that can influence our attitudes, is because it may be that there is some truth in the stereotype, that very often you have misrepresentation but also some grain of truth, some element of accuracy, and it's all mixed up together. If it was just untrue, if it was obviously false, then it would be much harder for people to believe in stereotypes. A second idea that often comes up when people talk about the representation of social groups is the idea of positive and negative images. The idea that there are ways of representing people that show them in a positive way and other ways show them in a negative way. And again, I think we need to be careful about that idea, partly because what your idea of a positive image may not be my idea of a positive image. Your idea of a negative image may not be the same as mine. So, for example, and this is often if we look at very complicated kinds of images. For example, a good case would be the kind of images that are put out by the police service to encourage black and ethnic minorities to join the police. Now, many people would say, well, those are positive images. They're showing black people as responsible members of society, as on the side of law and order, as doing good to the world. Other people would say, well, no, actually, if you look at the history of how black people are treated by the police, this is actually a negative image, or it's an image that at least is trying to deceive people about the reality of the situation in which the police are institutionally racist towards black people. So if we took an image like that, we could say, in some contexts, some people might interpret it as a positive image, other people might interpret it as a negative image, and probably the reality is that the positive and the negative are mixed up together. And that makes these kinds of judgments much more complex. We can't just get rid of all the negative images, get rid of all the stereotypes, and replace them with positive images or more accurate images.